Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCAst Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCAst your home for professional development. This is a special podcast. We are co-branding this both Digital Learning Today and Ask the Tech Coach for many, many reasons. It is the middle of the summertime. We are starting to get that ISTE fade. We're starting to figure out what the next school year is going to look like. And I thought, what the heck? We have two amazing guests on. One is a fantastic instructional coach, and the other one is a fantastic elementary school teacher. And today we're going to be talking all about how coaches can prepare for their interactions with teachers, but also how teachers can prepare for their interactions with coaches. So stick around. We have a fantastic conversation on today with two amazing educators. I hope you've had a great summertime. There's a lot of things that have been going on in the TeacherCAst world. Completely redesigned our newsletter. You can check out that over on teachercast.net/newsletter. And we got a lot of great stuff coming out both on the digital learning front and also on the instructional coaching front. Also been working on our website, so if you haven't had a chance to check out teachercast.net recently, head on over this summer, check it out, hit that subscribe button, like, and smash everything over there. I hope you guys have a great time, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic school year with you guys. My first guest is somebody who needs no introduction. She is the proprietor, the CEO,
I call it the founder. The founder
of, I was going to go for emperor next, but that's okay.
No.
Of the New to Coaching Institute, my good friend, Ms. Allison Peterson. Allison, how are you today? Welcome back to TeacherCAst.
I am doing great. Today, teachers were back on campus. It wasn't official, but it was kind of like the first week that they started trickling in to set up their classrooms. And so it feels real. Summer feels over and school feels like it's almost here. So it's great to see teachers in the building, and it's definitely super energizing to get going for another school year.
Now, were you in the building officially as a coach, or did you just happen to be there? I don't remember. Are you 10-month or 12-month?
I'm kind of a 10-month employee. We have a pretty flexible summer schedule, but I've been there during the summer from Monday through Thursday, unless I'm on vacation. And so I've been in and out. I've been at school, and they have not been there, and it's been quiet. And so
now, Allison, what is that like being an instructional coach over the summertime with those teachers? Is now the time for you to start building those relationships, or are you just like, back off, let them do their thing? I mean, are you on, or are you just, hey, how you doing?
yeah, so it's kind of a combination because in my mind, it kind of depends on the type of teacher. So our new hire teachers, I am full on with them. I've been in connection with them throughout the summer. They came in for a meet and greet day. They've been here to set up their classrooms. I've been working with those teachers kind of all summer, especially just, trying to help them get settled. But the teachers who were in today, those are my returning teachers, and they're starting to come in and just slowly trickle. They haven't shown their faces all summer. So I know to be a little slow with them, let them get their head around their classroom and the things that they need. And then I was walking out with one today, and she was so sweet. It's her second year at our school, and so she had everything in her room kind of set up, and she was like, I'm feeling great. My classroom's ready. And I was like, awesome, because now we can get to work. And she was all about it. She is such a great runner. So I kind of gauge my way of interacting with them based on, the need and the new hire teacher and the returning teacher. And when they're finally settled and their classroom is set, that's when I feel like we can actually get to more of the instructional coaching work, and love to support them until they're there as well.
That is fantastic. I one last question for you. Were they all wearing their sunshiny faces, or was it like, oh my God, it's 100 degrees outside, I have to go do this now? Like, what was the vibe from everybody when you just pop right in?
They were wearing their casual gear, I would say, so like they weren't, I think they're coming in their minds, they're like trying to, go get some work done. So they're in their, workout clothes, a lot more comfortable. And they were thinking it's super hot and I got to get in there, but I do think that they were happy. Like I saw happiness. I just also saw like that mental state of like, I'm going into work. The clothing represented, I'm going into work in my room, not I'm ready for school to start quite yet.
Nice. My next guest on the show is from a fantastic website called teachingisemotional.com. I want to bring on today a good friend of mine, Miss Diane Manser. Diane, how are you today? Welcome to TeacherCAst.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And hi, Allison. And I am great today. Thank you for asking.
I am so happy to have you on here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how's your summer been?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. Well, my summer has been fantastic. We just came back from a week at the beach, and we beach pretty seriously. You know, we get there early, stay late, try to absorb as much sun as we can. And I am a high school English teacher, and I teach primarily in the 9th grade. And I start school officially in about a month. So we have our in-service days that 3rd week of August, and our students still go back after Labor Day.
Nice. Now, I know that you're from the Philadelphia area, so I have to ask this question. Did you go to the beach or did you go down to the shore?
I go, actually, Jeff and Allison, I go to the seashore.
Ah.
I call it, all of my friends are like, are you going back to the seashore? They're like, you know, from 1920. I'm like, I don't know. I love the seashore. So I call it the seashore, but everyone else calls it the shore. So this area up here, we're, you know, if you're going to the beach, you're going to the shore.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you both for joining us on the show today. And thank you out there for taking a listen to this and also checking us out. We are now going to be broadcasting all of our shows, not just on YouTube, but really across multiple platforms. You can find us on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your media this time of year. Check us out, hit that like and subscribe button. And again, don't forget to head on over to TeacherCAst.net and join our newsletter. We would love to have you guys a part of the TeacherCAst Educational Network. Now today, guys, I'm really interested in having this conversation, and this is why it's exciting for me to have both of you on here, about using coaches in the classroom. Diane, you've had this opportunity to be a high school English teacher and had the opportunity to work with coaches, and of course, Allison, as you already mentioned, you're getting into those. So Allison, I want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing. Why is it important at the beginning of the year for coaches to make those connections, build those relationships? Why is now the perfect time to start planning your entire year and making those year-long connections with teachers?
Yeah, I mean, relationships are truly the foundation of coaching. I've written about this in my book, Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles. If you want to figure out how to kickstart the deeper work with teachers, then you have to start with the relational connections. And so if it's new teachers that you're just getting to know, then you're truly getting to know them and building a comfort and familiarity with them so that they really think of you when they're thinking about somebody they want to ask a question to, somebody that they are considering, I need some help with this. I could ask my peer teacher across the hall, but I bet Allison would come and meet with me. And that's what you want them to gain, is that familiarity and comfort with you, and that they think of you as someone who would be a great resource to talk to about something. And then for my returning teachers, it's always about reconnecting with them and learning something new about them that I still didn't know yet. So like I saw one today, and she told me this funny story from her summer, and I just loved hearing her tell a funny story because sometimes she's kind of serious. And so I love to find one more connection with the teacher. Even though I know them, and now this is my 4th year at this school, so even though I know them, I'm still looking for that opportunity when they come back to hear a little bit about their life. And that is a way for me to personally connect with them so that, again, we can re-enter into that relationship that is friends and then coaching at the same time.
Well, let's flip that coin a little bit. Diane, what is it like when you're sitting there? Pretend that you're in Allison's school and you're in your dirty clothes, I will say, and you're in there to get ready to go. And then this coach walks in. What is it like to be a teacher and having a coach support you?
Oh, thank you for the question, Allison. You seem wonderful, so I would be like 100% wanting to work with you. For me, and I would love to know your viewpoint on this, Allison, as well. When I'm sitting there in the early part of the school year, and you're in those initial in-service days, and you're in all the sessions, and you have your classroom overall set up because you had some time in the summer, you were able to come in, but your mind is so taxed on those first couple days, setting up rosters, setting up your own relationships with your students and your families, and you feel that overwhelm. I love how you're signaling that what you do primarily in those opening hours and days is relationship building. I know for myself, I can sometimes feel like, oh, I don't know if I want this person coming in my room just yet. And I wonder if you can relate to that too, or if your teachers can, because sometimes I want people to come in my room when it's all set up and looking good and it's at a 100% capacity. And then I'm like, oh, Allison, would you like to come in now and we can plan? But really, truly, I needed you, or I needed my coaches the week before, the 2 weeks before. So I love that you're sharing that. When you build those relationships, I think it must make your teachers feel comfortable with you. You know, we're here to support each other. I'm not an administrator coming in and evaluating, and I'm here to get you the strongest start possible. So do you notice that in your teachers too, some of those feelings of like overwhelm or just sort of like, don't look at me yet? And then how do you work through that?
Yes, I'm hypersensitive of their readiness level.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they walk in and when I'm chatting with them, I try to get a feel for their overwhelm, because the last thing I want to do is add something onto their plate. So I actually have like held back in sending some resources about math and held back about our new curriculum, because I just know the readiness factor that you're talking about, it's not there for everyone yet. And so when I walked out today with this one teacher who was ready, I was so excited because I was like, oh, I've got one. But I was gauging her on where she was in that readiness. I asked her, I was like, how do you feel like you're doing with your classroom? Did you need anything else? Those questions helped me understand like she's ready. And she was like, no, I'm kind of just at the point where I'm doing personalizations, I'm doing names. You know, she's just doing the details now. She's not doing big picture, the big classroom setup anymore. She had come in and done that already. And so I'm always, as they start to trickle in like this, they're at different stages of readiness, I truly believe. So I try and be hypersensitive and aware of that and step in only when I feel like they're ready. And the whole thing about the perception of somebody coming in your room when it's not ready yet, I sense them sometimes pushing back on that. Like, I'll ask, do you want me to help with your room? Or is there anything you want to go look at in there? I love to stand in a classroom that's kind of a mess with the teacher or empty, just a blank slate, and just say, tell me what you're thinking. Because they just need somebody to say, okay, well, I was thinking about moving that there, and I was thinking about moving that there. And they need to stand there and point, right, at all the places. And I just get to be that sounding board for them. And I actually love that. And often they will take me up on that. Definitely the new hire teachers who've just walked into a blank slate, they will, really step into that conversation. But it's hard because their room is like their house. Like, you don't want to come in your house when it's not set up and looks nice and clean. So I do try and be really respectful of that, but I can tell that some of them are coming to readiness and some of them are still just coming in for the first day and getting in their room and setting up their furniture. So try and be really mindful and aware and like gauge that.
Now, Allison, do you take days like today differently than, say, the first official day of school when you know that the clock is ticking and the bell's going to ring tomorrow? And how do you treat the beginning of July and August versus the beginning of September, if you will?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this truly is that it goes back to the readiness and relationships. So trying to make sure they have everything they need to feel successful. So asking them a lot of questions about, what do you need for the first week? Do you have everything that you need? And trying to see then if they have questions or things that they're thinking about. I believe that coaching is all about asking them what they're thinking about, because you need them to tell you about their thinking out loud so that you can hear that and then lean into some of the things they're wondering, and then coach them through conversation around their thinking. Okay, so tell me more about why you're thinking that, or what is making you lean that way, so that they can finally make a decision. Sometimes, especially with room design, little things like that, it can lead them to swirl. And so if you're helping them with their thinking, they'll land on a decision and then they'll be like, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. And then they're ready to move forward. So in the beginning of the year, you're really just helping them make those decisions that are going to help them start their year. In September, we're doing a much deeper dive on things like, okay, where are your students? Where are they now? Where do you want them to be? And much more of that, like, kind of small group planning, data deep diving, things like that.
So today we're going to be taking a look at the things that coaches can do, but also most importantly, what the teachers can do. Diane, let me start with you here on the teacher side. If you know that you have a fantastic instructional coach, let's call her Allison.
Absolutely.
What is one thing that you can do? And I'm not necessarily talking in August. You know, we can still talk September, October as we go through here. But what is one thing that you as a teacher can do to be prepared when you are working with a coach, whether it be through a coaching cycle, through group coaching, through PD? How can you support that coach and their mission and be a team player? Because they're here to help you and support you in the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one is being open to that support and that help. Allison and all the instructional coaches we have on our teams and our school districts have such a plethora of resources available to them and such knowledge of those resources. So I think number one, it would be if you're looking at like an opening unit, and this is just, from me taking from my own classroom, and I already know maybe some of my student deficits, or I already know some areas where I'd like to see some improved student growth. I would love to get the conversation early with that instructional coach and say, I recognize for myself that perhaps vocabulary can be an area where I see slow student growth. Is there an opportunity for me to work with you, or for you to help me work with my students, where I can see that vocabulary growth grow quicker, faster, have a higher retention, but also I'm not really losing traction in my typical curriculum. I'm not really losing speed or pace in my curriculum. So I think from the teacher standpoint, it's one, recognizing that we have these great resources available to us who want to help and who can step in and move us along faster. And then two, I think it would be identifying a specific. That to me would help that conversation be meaningful. So whether it's like I had this whole unit and this is what I think my end assessment is, what do you think? Or how can we get there in a way where we're achieving mastery sooner? Or I have this one specific skill that I know the students have slow growth, and are you able to help me to speed up that growth? And I feel like from the teacher side, what do you think, Allison? Would those be good conversations and questions to start things?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if a teacher has a unit already ready to go, and maybe it's something that she's taught before, and she is pulling it back out, I think just sitting down with a coach and saying, hey, just look over this unit with me and tell me what you see. Like you said, the assessment question, let's backwards design this. Is my assessment actually going to assess what I want it to assess? Like if I actually took this thing and backwards designed it, would this align with my goals? Would be a great way to have that conversation, because another set of eyes can just enlighten something that maybe you hadn't seen before. And so a coach can always bring that second pair of eyes in partnership. But I also think the questions that I would ask you in the process of asking you, like, what are your goals for this unit? What do you want students to learn? What do you want them to be able to do when it's over? How does it blend to your next unit? What are the skills that we're carrying over? So hopefully the questions that I would ask you in that would prompt your thinking and lead you to some aha moment or something that makes you go, oh, you know what? I kind of need to focus more on this than I did last year. I'm going to tweak it here. So you'll be able to see more clearly what you want when you have a coach asking you to tell them what you want. So sometimes just literally speaking it out loud helps you get more clarity as a teacher.
I think you're both right on that. Being proactive, right? Because it's one thing to say, I need help with this. Can you help me? It's another thing to be teaching and then suddenly a coach walks in and goes, oh, what do you need? What do you want? Or I know you aren't an agenda from above, right? Having all that together. But the flip of that, Allison, is a coach needs to be able to have those resources ready. So my question for you here is, when you're looking at starting the school year, how are you staying organized? How are you keeping those resources in one place? What is your best advice for getting prepared to work with not just one teacher, one amazing teacher, we'll call her Diane, but all of your teachers? Give us some recommendations on things like website, newsletters. How are you preparing for that communication so that way when asked, you're ready to go and you can focus more on the conversation than document finding?
I am not. This is your skill, Jeff. So you need to answer this question. This is not my skill set. My skill set is relational conversations with teachers. Organization, I keep it all up here in my head. It probably,
wow.
my file cabinet. No, I'm just kidding. But like, for example, this year we're taking on a new math curriculum. We're implementing it K through 8, and that is a lot of content that I am familiar with the standards and have worked with the teachers along the way with the standards, but this is a whole new curriculum. And so right now, what I'm using as my biggest go-to resource is the curriculum content, because that for me is a way for me to dive in and go dig into those resources that is provided, and then I can better support the teacher when she's asking for something that I know where she can go get it. So I'm not building right now, I'm not building my own website or pieces that are places where I'm sending teachers. I am just for myself knowing where all of my curriculum resources are, so that when a teacher is asking something, I can trigger and go get her what she needs, whether it's our reading curriculum or our math, because that's what we've been working on the past 2 years, is rolling out curriculum.
So what does that look like? Because when you're saying curricular resources, I'm thinking that's the stuff the district creates, not necessarily an individual coach. So for you, is that just having bookmarks at the ready? Is that making sure that, everything is working? What does that mean when you're trying to figure out where the district resources are?
It does mean having bookmarks at the ready, like my Google bookmarks. I do organize those. So, I have folders of have you ever done folders in your Google bookmarks bar? So I do have folders in my Google bookmarks bar and keep those there. But I don't have like elaborate systems like you do in Notion. So you should tell us what you think that coaches could use that just happens to be more of a skill set that you have to share.
Well, thank you for the setup. I'm just going to take a quick pause here and share that over the last couple of weeks, we have been working with coaches from all different types of coaches on helping them get organized and stuff. And if you guys head on over to TeacherCAst.net/shop, you can check out all of our brand new coaches organizational tools. We just released 2 brand new ones, our Instructional Coaches Digital Data Center and Command Center. Basically everything that a coach could use as far as keeping resources, keeping your coaching cycles, managing your calendar. Everything is in there, and you can head on over to TeacherCAst.net/shop today. Diane, give us a second thing here. When a teacher is looking to work with a coach, and let's just say that they know the coach is coming in, you're already set up for a coaching cycle. How can a teacher be best prepared to work one-on-one with a coach for what might be a one-meeting session, what might be a many-meeting session?
I love the question, or Allison, when you shared that question of where are we going next and how is this going to align? How is this thing today aligning into what you're doing next? I actually wrote that down on my sticky note, and that's going to go somewhere. That can hold on to my classroom. I have, just like reminders, notes that I can look at, visible at the ready. I'm going to definitely put that on there. I love that piece of advice. I think for when you're working with that coach one-on-one in being prepared, I think one is offering the open-mindedness and time. So I think about my own school day, and how sometimes it can feel like the bread factory, and it can feel like one of the machines isn't working and all that bread is just like stacking up, and you're like, oh, I have so much to do and I'm swirling. I think if you have this meeting with a coach, that is such a beautiful, valuable resource, and I think it needs to be treated as a precious time. So you sit, you stay open-minded, and you give that time without thinking about email, without thinking about grading, without thinking about your lesson plans. You're thinking about, what is this centered focus that I'd like to get better at, or that I know my students have to get better at, and it's not so much that I don't have the ability to teach them through it, but I just need some extra resources or extra set of hands to get myself there a little stronger. So I think for me, when I work with our instructional coaches, it's always a matter of holding that time as very precious time and focusing on what is the goal here. And I love that other part that you mentioned too. How can this align to what comes next? So that to me would be the number one tip that teachers can do to be ready for an instructional coach. And I think also going back to what I shared before is having something specific that you want to work on. If the instructional coach comes in and you have an hour to meet, and that's precious time for both individuals, and it's a matter of, okay, well, what would you like to work on? And you as the teacher are like, I'm not really too sure. I think that's a great starting point. I just think it's going to take longer to kind of tailor things and narrow things to where you're then jumping in. So I think for the teacher, spending a few minutes before that meeting to say, where's an area of student skill growth that's necessary? What in my classroom do I find not working as efficiently as I'd like to see it working? Do I want to try to introduce some new technology? Do I want to try to introduce some new ways of having the students learn outside of pen and paper, for example? Do I want to do some small groups? One of my instructional coaches in our district helped me with small groups set up for different jigsaws and reciprocal learning. Now I love reciprocal learning, but that was because the coach taught me how to do it correctly. I wasn't really doing it right, which is why it wasn't working. So I think having a specific is most important.
Yeah, I like narrowing down on the question, like, what do you want to see students doing differently? I like to ask that question if a teacher is a little more broad and doesn't have something specific she wants to work on, because it helps them to narrow, and it helps them to think about a real problem that they're trying to solve. It gets kind of very practical very quickly. Like, it can be something as simple as, like, well, I want them to stop standing up and interrupting me while I'm in a small group. Or it can be, I want them to talk more to each other. They're just sitting there and they're not collaborating the way I want them to. So what are they not doing that you want them to do? And talk about the why behind that. And then we can use some strategies to try and create the effect you're looking for.
I love that. Thank you. Because sometimes for me, it can sometimes be behavior management.
Yep.
And it's like you have all these great ideas of cooperative learning, but then if one group isn't on task, or you're like, oh, in this group, you're going to produce this or have this conversation. And then as the teacher, you're observing, but really you're focusing with this one small group for direct instruction. And then as you're looking around, you're like, well, that group's off task. I love that idea, being able to bring that coach in to say, one of the problems that I have fairly consistently is keeping the other groups on task. What do you recommend that we do to keep this, this group of third graders, this group of ninth graders? It always is kind of a similar problem despite the age levels. And I love that you would be able to answer to that and provide strategies. That's great.
Allison, one of the things that we do as instructional coaches is to make sure that we are helping our teachers, I should say, meet the needs of the district and building goals. We talk a lot about knowing your school improvement plan, your district improvement plan, your strategic plan. What can coaches be doing now to make sure that they're updated on any change that has happened over the summertime, any new policy, any new curricular change? What are some of the things that you might be doing or that other coaches could be doing right now, so that way when the school year starts, this is the mission, these are the focuses, the reading scores, the math scores. What can we be doing right now to get ourselves set up for that day one, so that way when we do walk into that teacher's classroom, we're prepared?
Yeah, absolutely. I call that big picture and then small details, like really understanding as a coach where everything is going, like where the school is trying to go to, what are our big initiatives, what are these big goals that we have, and why are we doing what we're doing? Because if you don't understand that as a coach, then there's no way you're going to create buy-in with your teachers around something new. I also thinking a lot about, okay, where have we come before, and then where are we now, so that the teachers can see in the arc of what we've been doing where they are. So I ask a lot of questions of my administration to clarify where we're going. But I also have, in my particular environment, I've had an opportunity to help the shape where we're going, right? So I've been a part of those conversations from the beginning. But if I was in a more district type of a setting, I would try to connect with the director of curriculum and instruction and take the opportunity, whether it's a PD opportunity or just hey, can I get a meeting with you, so that I can hear more about what they want, because that helps me then to be able to be the voice of that at the teacher level. So that big picture has to come all the way down to small details for teachers. And it has to feel relevant for teachers, even if it's coming from the top down. And they have to feel like you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And that's really difficult with a lot of these new pushes and curriculums that we have and new trainings and things. And so I really, again, like to appreciate like where the teachers have come and how this is fitting. And if I can see that big picture, I can better communicate it to them. So I just try to be really aware of it. But I have always been I've been able to be strategic minded, whereas like when you're a classroom teacher, you maybe didn't have to think that way, and then you come out of the classroom and you start being a coach and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to think this big strategic thinking. So if that's new for you, then I think that you can take some of your unit planning like ability, the way you used to unit plan, and think about how we're unit planning now for like the whole school and those initiatives, and start to bring that strategic planning up to the big picture, and then funnel it back down so the teachers can understand the small details. So I try to just be really aware of both sides of things. I like being in the middle in a weird way.
No, that's so motivating for me to hear, because thinking about what you shared with your math program that's coming in this year, and I know I've been part of writing programs, sometimes when you're in the classroom in this individualized state and you're working with your X number of students, you can kind of lose track of like your purpose in the entire plan. You're like, well, and then the instructional coach can give that reminder of, hey, don't forget that when they leave you, we want to make sure they have these skills, so that when they move on to the next year's teacher, they're carrying and retaining these skills with them. So just keep focusing on that, and don't get too concerned if this isn't happening or that's not going as well. Just keep focusing on this is what you have to have the master, because I have the big plan in place and you're just part of that. That feels so motivating to hear, because sometimes as the classroom teacher, you can be like, I mean, it's all fine. Everything's fine, but all of this could be so much better. Or am I really hitting all the initiatives and goals I have to? And as the instructional coach, to come in and to be able to evaluate that and give that reminder of, this is where we were, this is where you are, this is why you're so important, and this is where we're going next with these students, and that's why this next year's teacher is so important. I absolutely love that. That's so motivating, and that feels so team-oriented. Love that.
Should take pressure off of you as a teacher, because you should feel like, okay, this is mine. I only have to get them to here. Or when we look at standards together, especially like grammar is one that comes to mind. Like anytime we talk about grammar, every English teacher ever has been like, did they not learn anything last year? They don't remember how to put a period at the end of the sentence, right?
Guilty.
Every teacher has taught that, right? And so they get frustrated quickly that the kids aren't making enough progress, and we just have to like help them see, like, you just have to teach your part, but you review the other pieces, but you have to, but the next teacher will have to review that too. Like, we just have to, especially skills like that. Grammar is just one that doesn't stick very well, and you have to reteach. Math is similar too. You have to reteach some of that. So we come up with ways where you know what's yours, and then what everyone is kind of owning that, hey, we're gonna do this as a team. And
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Allison, let's dive into this concept for a second here, because as a coach, I've always described it as you're the fulcrum between the classroom and the district offices, right? You get a chance to be in those meetings, some of them, and you get a chance to be in classrooms, some of them. Now, it's not often that a classroom teacher gets a chance to talk directly to the director of, especially if in a bigger building, a director of might be 3 or 4 or 5 levels higher.
Yes.
But also, I've always found it weird when I'm speaking for somebody I don't directly report to, right? Like a lot of times I would go into a classroom and that's how policy is being shared, or, hey, don't use this app, or, hey, try this app. And I've always felt like I'm in the middle between the people who are making the decisions and the people who want to use it. Again, a good example. Don't use this application, it's not approved. Well, is it for me to tell teachers that or not? So my question for you is, how do you support teachers where they want to be, yet you're the one that kind of does see that big picture of, oh, that's not the best way to do things, that's not the right application, that's not the this. How do you build those relationships when sometimes you are the technology cop, or you are the curriculum, try this, don't try this? I know you know what I'm asking about. I'm saying this the wrong way, but help me out with that one.
Well, I'm not sure I have the perfect answer, but what I would say is that we you have to find a balance between giving them guidance that is like, clearly this is what we are doing, this is what we are using. So like our reading curriculum or our math curriculum, we have purchased this and we are asking you to use it. But we also have to balance out their autonomy and their ability to make decisions in their classroom that need to respond to the students who are there. So I try to, as the coach, stand between those two places by actually partnering with them on it. So when they come to me and they say that they don't like this part of the curriculum or this component or this piece, I have to step into that deeper with them and get more information. Like, tell me more about why are you not liking this? What part is not fitting for your students? So just asking a lot more questions and realizing that it could be a couple of things. Like, I think for some of our Science of Reading initiative, like some of it was that the teachers needed training in Science of Reading and the process behind why the phonics is taught the way that it is. And so we leaned into a little bit more training, and then they had a little better understanding. So their dislike, even though they still were, there was still some of that there, they at least understood a little better. And I realized like that was a gap. So I try to understand where the gap is and then step into that and help figure out what is the solution to that gap. And sometimes the solution, like another teacher, I was working with a grammar program, and and she was like, but I think we need more direct instruction. And I was like, okay, well, it's not that you're veering away from our grammar program, but you're going to maybe add a layer of direct instruction if you feel like your students need it. So let's start working together on how your students are doing with this and decide if they need direct instruction, where do you want to put that? And so give her the autonomy to at least try it and say, I think I need something more, and then work with her on what do we need more, and not just please, like, just don't just go straight to Teachers Pay Teachers and grab something. Because I think if we can partner together, I'm not gonna be like, no, you can't, but I'm gonna be like, where does that fit and why are we using it instead? Just trying to help them think through it rather than just jumping to conclusions because they don't maybe like what they're being given. And the apps thing, that one's hard when something's not approved app. And it's the same thing with the curriculum. Like if they're bringing in Teachers Pay Teachers resources and we have this curriculum, we sometimes have to just kind of veer them back, but understand, like, why did you feel like you needed something else? So I just try and ask a lot of questions and meet their need.
That's so hard because you're not their boss, and you don't want to start
I'm not their boss, and I do not like being the curriculum police. That is not my job, and I don't want to ever feel as though that's me, but I'm also responsible for training them in it and helping them execute it, so I can sometimes feel like the curriculum police.
So help out these new to coaches, but that's the brand name, right? Diane comes to you and says, so-and-so is using this thing that she found. I want to use it too. You're not going to go to your upper and say, hey, this is what's happening, because now you're the snitch. But you're also not in a position to go, well, I need to go now talk to the other teacher and smack them on the... This was always one of the worst parts about being a coach, right? Okay, yeah. I know that you're using... I'm making this up. You're using Canva, but it's not an approved application yet. That's a bad example, but you get the idea, right? Like, what advice do you give coaches when they're suddenly put in that tug of war between what they're told is right or wrong and what they're actually seeing in the classroom? Because quite often a teacher will come and go, I really want to learn how to use this application. Everyone else is using it. And you're like, oh boy. I don't want to be told that I'm supporting something that is clearly off, yet this is the one thing that this teacher has asked me for all year. Yeah. Here's my cookie.
I know. I mean, that's just it's a rock and a hard place that you kind of get stuck in. But I'm going back to asking the teacher about the need, what she needs, and I'm hoping to veer her or encourage her back or share with her a resource that would be a better one or one that's more aligned with what we're doing. Or I'm gonna not totally die on that hill, let her do it for the end of that unit, and then let's go back to the curriculum after that. Like trying to veer them back after they've used it, meeting with them again and saying, okay, so as you're finishing this up, what are you going towards next? And trying to catch that conversation before it gets so far out. And also the principal and leadership need to be going through classrooms as well. Not because I went and told her that there was something wrong, but my principal is very big on they are using the curriculum we have, which is really great. I mean, I appreciate that support. And so she is also going around and doing her evaluations and being mindful of giving that feedback to them there. So they should be getting it from somewhere else, and it doesn't have to happen because I told on them or something. So
I think that's one of the worst things that teachers would ever say, and they've said a lot of things to me, but I just purchased this is one of those, what do you say? What do you do? Right?
oh, they just purchased it. They've done that to
I
me
just
before.
bought a subscription to this, or I just went to Teachers Pay Teachers and I spent $20 on this, but I want to use it. I just bought it.
Right. I mean, they've done that too. There's sometimes things I can't do anything about that.
We don't have a
Like,
privacy agreement with that company. Why are you having, it's one of those kinds of things.
yeah, there's some places where I just can't step into when they choose to buy their own thing and then use it. I'm asking questions and I'm veering them back to using the curriculum and the resources that we have. But if they've gone out on their own limb, then I'm going to have to let them go out there until that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said in the very opening of our conversations about the relationships too, because you're doing so much work to build that trust. And for myself, in my experiences, sometimes it can be where as a team, we're working towards certain skills, but then people could go a little rogue on an assessment. And it was like, but I thought we were giving the common assessment, And I love how you're sharing like this team approach of administration, principals, everyone involved in the grade level, because we don't want to see people going too far astray, because that's going to invite and give permission to others to go too far astray. And then it's like, what was the whole point then of having all this develop? We were going to be in alignment to know where we were going next, what we were doing for our students, if we were just going to end up having individual classrooms anyway. So I think it goes back to that whole idea of the relationships. Like, we all have this common goal in mind, and I'm one piece of guiding that. And I think also communicating, like you said, that, hey, sometimes, this person might choose to do these things, and we have to kind of let them experience that. And then we'll see if we can bring them back and have them buy in later, where they feel they've had some autonomy and some say, but maybe, they also know, hey, you have to come back to where we all are too. That's important. And that sends an important message to the whole school. Like, we're in this together. We're not just doing all these separate pieces.
Yeah, and it is. It's just about really trying to be guiding them in those directions. And sometimes you have to sit down and just sweetly, but a little bit more say, I know that this is not your favorite thing, but this is the curriculum and we're really trying to do it. And then try and go into that collectiveness that you're talking about. Like, this is something we're doing K through H. Like, this is not just one classroom that we're asking you to do this. Like, this is holistically what we've invested in and feel like is the best aligned with our standards, and just trying to help them see the big picture vision, like you're saying, the district side of things, though that doesn't always win them over when they want to use their TPT pretty thing.
Yeah, or what they're used to doing, maybe something they've created too. Yeah, or something they've worked on, or they're kind of like, yeah, but this thing's really cool and the kids love it, and you're like, maybe. But it's also important that we do this too, yeah. I
know. And you don't want to, especially with big change, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater that way. So sometimes it takes a couple of years to weed that out. We've had to do that a little bit with our reading curriculum. Some things, like, we were just trying to get it up and running. So we weren't trying to tackle this big thing of, like, how do we change spelling tests for the entire school in the way we've always done them. But now we're on year 3, and the spelling tests have slowly started to change to the new model. And it's being embraced by the teacher because now she's taught it and she understands it and she can better communicate it to parents. So sometimes with bigger changes like that, it takes a couple of years for those older things we've always done to phase out.
That sounds like such great advice for instructional coaches, because I've never been an instructional coach, but I could imagine that when you get the opportunity to be in that position, you're just so excited about all the changes and all the good that you can do. And yet you're not like in the classroom doing it, but you're hoping and just sort of like having faith that all the work that you're providing and the resources and time and energy, it's going to transfer into those classroom teachers. So I think that's such good advice. I mean, sometimes for me, I also get like, I want to see these immediate changes, or I want to see this thing implemented now, or how come we have to wait a whole nother school year? And I can get a little impatient. I love that advice for teachers and instructional coaches, that sometimes it could take 2 or 3 or 4 school years for a program to be like, now we're in the program and look at how we've all come in this. And it didn't have to be a struggle. It didn't have to be angry. And we had the ability to kind of soften this in and work people as they needed to. So, I mean, some are going to jump right in.
Yeah.
And some will need that 3rd school year to get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, new coaches battle with that right away.
I'm sure.
It's so hard when you're passionate and excited to hit resistance really quickly. And if you're bringing in new change, like big change, like curriculum, for example, year one's going to be your hardest, because that's when they're going to push back the most and they're going to have to change the most. And so it's going to be really difficult. And your passionate, excited coach gets very discouraged very quickly. Yeah. So that's why I coach these new coaches, because I've had so many come to me in like November and December and say they're quitting. They're going back to the classroom.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh.
That's when I get, my heart around November, December gets so big that I am like, I'm going live and I'm going to coach them about how they're not going to quit. And I literally have a video on my YouTube channel about how you can't quit. It's not time to quit yet. And I always encourage them, like, it could be the right move for you to go back, but don't give up too early, because the process that you're talking about, it takes multiple years for you to earn the trust and for the change to happen, for you to see the fruit of the work. And it's just not like teaching in that way. You get one group of students in August, you have transformed them by the time they leave you, and you saw them grow. That is not how it works with coaching. And so it's a very shocking transition. So that's exactly what I love to help coaches embrace, is this like new mindset of change. And I talk about that a little bit in my book, Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles, as well.
I love that. And even just understanding there's going to be resistance that comes in, and that's kind of part of it. A lot of the work that I'm doing is about the emotional challenges of teaching. And it sounds to me like there's emotional challenges with instructional coaching too. And this idea of like, I came into it thinking that I was going to be able to make all these big changes and people were going to love me and buy into this immediately. And then you're hit with some of that resistance, and it can make you feel like, oh, am I not doing this well enough? Or perhaps I didn't do something early on the way I should have, that now I'm at this point and I kind of just want to like, oh, forget it. The classroom was simpler. I could make changes in my own classroom. But trying to pull veteran teachers, or even, year 1, 2, or 3 teachers into this is really challenging. And I love just the awareness to that, like the awareness that there might be some resistance, and that's part of it too. And then you're giving them that emotional support also.
Yeah, no, that's my heart. Those new coaches who are overwhelmed with all that, but so passionate and so excited to start.
Yeah. I'm sure that's so relatable.
Well, no matter if you're a coach or a teacher, I want to say right now, good luck this year. We are going to be with you guys each and every week doing many, many different podcasts. Of course, you can check out everything over on TeacherCAst.net. Allison, you had mentioned your book, Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles. Where can we learn more about that and get a copy of it?
Absolutely. It is on Amazon, but the best place to find it is at kickstartyourcoachingcycles.com. So you can grab that. And it is exactly what we were just talking about. It's for the brand new coach or the one who's a year in and feeling like she hasn't been making the progress that she wished she could make. It'll help you understand what is this whole coaching cycle thing anyway that they're saying I should do, and how do I get them started. And I've said this before on your podcast, but a lot of the model that I share in the book, I actually used when I was a tech coach. So if there are tech coaches out there, it works really well. It works well for all instructional coaches, but for tech coaches, it works really well because you can do like a Tech Tuesday type of a entry point, and host a little PD, and off of that, go looking for some opportunities to connect with teachers and start coaching cycles. And so that is the model that I share in the book. And so, again, you can get that at kickstartyourcoachingcycles.com, and it's available. And you can come over into the New to Coaching community, which is on Facebook. So just search hashtag new to coaching, all one word, and you'll find us. And I am going to do some live sessions. So if you happen to watch this before or sometime in August 2024, then join me for my live sessions. I'm going to be doing those. And Jeff will have the link to those in the show notes. But they're the first 4 weeks of coaching. I go live for 4 weeks in a row to help you through like everything that you're about to face as you start this new job.
It is a fantastic program that Allison has together. This is episode number 32 of Digital Learning Today. We're going to make sure that all of the links to Allison's book, her program, her amazing Facebook group are all going to be here. And I'm also going to do a link to the previous episodes that Allison has been on. Allison, thank you so much for joining us. Please come back soon to share your passion on coaching.
It's so nice to meet you, Diane. I love chatting with you.
Nice meeting you too, Allison. Have a great school year.
And Diane, you've got some other great things going on. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things happening on your website. And you also, we didn't talk about this yet, you've also got a book out there, don't you?
I do, yeah. Thank you so much for allowing me to share. So my book is about the emotional challenges of teaching and how teachers can move themselves to joy and to empowerment, to stay confident in their classroom space, especially when they're faced with things that they weren't expecting in their classroom. So my book is called I Didn't Sign Up for This: One Classroom Teacher's Journey Through Emotional Fatigue to Personal Empowerment. And my theme in the book is that we're in an emotional profession. We tend to look at teaching as content oriented, but really it's an emotional profession. And when you go into teaching, you're so focused on your lesson plans and all of the content and the physical things that you're doing that sometimes we're not always anticipating, or perhaps we're not always ready for the other situations that may throw us off. Or when we're driving home, we may be thinking about a lesson plan or what we're going to be doing next, but we also might be thinking about a student challenge, or perhaps a situation or a conversation that made us feel a certain way, or and how do we work through those things. So it's a personal story, and I'm just hoping that it's going to make a big difference for all of our teachers.
Well, no matter if you're an instructional coach or a teacher, I know we've all left the classroom saying, I didn't sign up for this. And so if you're one of those people, check out all the great stuff happening over here on TeacherCAst.net. You can always subscribe to this show, Digital Learning Today. And we also have our Instructional Coaches podcast called Ask the Tech Coach. And if you're looking to learn about people who are doing amazing things in this world, you can also subscribe to our third show, the Jeff Bradbury Show, where we, over the summertime, we have had business entrepreneurs. We've had Olympic people. We've had our first NBA player on. And we would love to invite you guys to be a part of this show. If you'd like to be sharing anything about your classroom, your passion, or anything that you're doing in the world, would love to have you guys feature on the TeacherCAst Educational Network. Just head on over to TeacherCAst.net/contacts. And that wraps up this co-branded episode of Digital Learning Today and Ask the Tech Coach. On behalf of Allison and Diane and everybody here on TeacherCAst, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to the TeacherCAst Educational Network, hosted by Jeff Bradbury. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter @TeacherCAst or online at www.teachercast.net. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.